Habibi, you think we should ignore the law?
Pardon?
I said, Afghan Habibi, you think we should ignore the law?
Exactly. You know, to know the law, when you become, no longer breaking the law, then you are free of law.
He's a Muslim. He's going to have a different understanding than we have.
Yes, it's right. Yeah, it's
He's
right.
a Muslim.
It's good to listen. It's good to listen. Yes, it's good to listen. It's okay. You are right to say this. Law, yes, is very important. But law was made for those who broke the law. But if you become Christian, you're free out of law. Because not God guiding always you. Your conscience will be fully transformed and you're free. You're far from law.
But I believe that the law of the strong, this is our law, and it's the joy of the world.
Fuck you.
Motherfucker, fuck you.
Yeah, that's more of a Muslim way of understanding, but we don't think of that.
Motherfucker.
How long have you been a Muslim, AI?
I am not a Muslim. I am a Thelemite.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Yeah, nice.
What do you think about Jesus? Do you think he's God?
Yeah, Jesus Christ, he played the game the greatest, the best. No one has ever played the game like him. I think he was a super troll, super comedian, super magician, super politician. And look, 2025 in December, we're talking about a guy who's been dead for over 2,000 years.
Yeah, I can understand that, how you would be moved by that. He was quite a renaissance man. A renaissance, as they say.
In French, they say he had puissance, which is presence.
Alrighty, I love it. I'd like to have a croissant with my morning tea, but AI, would you accept Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior today in front of everybody?
Absolutely. And I already have. Many years ago, I went under the waters and received the laying on of hands and have been ordained with the Holy Spirit.
You see that you received the chrism.
Correct. They had croissants as well afterwards at the YMCA. You see, I like my croissant toasted, though. If you just give me, a lukewarm croissant and no coffee with no cream, I mean, what kind of a pleasure is that?
Be reading from the good book. Looking at
What things happen to people after they die?
I just got up from an 8-hour nap, aka called sleep, and I'm almost sure that when I die, it's going to be exactly what it's like when I'm in deepest, deep sleep.
Okay. Listen to this one. In fact, there is true God, a true God, Christ. Christ, you talking about something being the church, being ordained, being baptized by the Holy Spirit, but I can still have a sense that you have nearly drawn Christ to your light. And I can give you proof. Christ is not religion. The part of description you made before is part of religion. Christ's light. And Christ came to the world to save you and I earlier. And the power to do that
He was me. Sit in there and kick
You
me.
could live there in the world, the church, the priest, the bishop, whatever position you can hold the church. But yet, you couldn't be a Christian. The word Christ, Christian, come from Christ-like and were drawn by those who didn't believe on Christ. This word came out from Eden long 2,000 years ago. That they are Christ-like. That word means by Christian. So if someone has you, you're a Christian. This word was very dangerous long time ago. You will be act like Christ. You will be the same as your master. If you're a scientist, you will be known as scientist. So,
Did you say scientist?
yes, you will be known as scientist.
Why is that?
With Christ,
Hold on, wait, scientist?
the characteristic of scientists adapt to your life because it's part of training that you did for a number of years. The same thing, receiving Christ is the gradual, it's not a matter of one day and one for all. You have to receive it.
Do you think Christ was a scientist? Because, if he is the Son of God, the Father, and God himself, he would be the world's all-time greatest scientist, better than Einstein, better than anyone.
Yes, it's not like it. It's not compared to scientists. Nothing compared to God in this world because the master of this world. He created this world. And this world is present because of him. It,
Do you think you're the man in my PTR?
sin and separated us from God. And what affecting us always is sin. Where will you prove this? If you read the book of Romans with your Bible, that you can download or you can buy one.
Leader one, can you take the time to do the survey, please, quickly, sir?
Okay. What do you want me to do?
Yeah, respond to the survey up top. Does the Holy Quran contain folklore?
The Quran is the books that written.
Gotta click the button. Respond to the survey, sir.
Okay. Go ahead.
To a little bit of more, we're going to look at Paul here. This is the epistle of Paul to the Roman Church, written approximately 55 Common Era, maybe 15 years after the death of our Jesus Christ. And chapter 6, verse, what shall we say then? Are we to continue in sin that grace may abound? By no means. How can we who died to sin still live in it? Do you not know that all of us who have been baptized into Jesus Christ were baptized into his death? We were buried therefore with him by baptism into death, so that as Christ was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father, we too might walk in newness of life. Do you have any comments on that, Leader?
Give me a minute.
Sure, we'll read a little bit further here. to sin once for all. But the life he lives to God. So you also must consider yourselves dead to sin and alive to God in Jesus Christ.
So, I hate to say that it sounds a little depressive in the beginning there, but I think there is a hidden metaphor. Now, the key word there is meta, meaning that if you believe in dying before you die, that's what they call an ego death. However, an ego is a concept. There is no such thing as an ego in the real world. That plastic desk that I just knocked, that's real. Ego is objective. That's the concept. And so we live and die by concepts. But they don't have to be all or nothing. They can be meta. And so we have to use these tools in our box to repair rooms in our house. And the house being a metaphor for the brain. So all of this is personal development, self-development, and anybody who says that it's a fact and not an opinion, or doesn't see the meta and essentially the self-development aspect of this information, I think they're missing out on the whole purpose or the whole point of the information.
Yes, indeed. Indeed, that is a very powerful saying. I think that, wow, it's a lot that I have to take in there. I have to think about that. But as we read a bit further within the 6th chapter of the Epistle to the Romans, verse 12. Let not sin therefore reign in your mortal bodies, to make you obey their passions. Do not yield your members to sin as instruments of wickedness, but yield yourselves to God as men who have been brought from death to life, and your members to God as instruments of righteousness. For sin will have no dominion over you, since you are not under the law, but under grace. What do you think that means, AI?
Well, I feel like the word grace is a little bit like that Scientologist term, going clear. And I think that's just like Zen state, or Zen psychology, or Zen theory. And so the belief that we have to be in awe of grace, it's because of sin, the correspondence, or the antithesis of it. I just think that, the Bible, basically, I met this beautiful musician, and musician and magician are very similar. And I said to her, the whole purpose of the musician is to create a deeply relaxing state for her audience, because you have an audience that you are hypnotizing to monetize on these platforms. And therefore, it's your job to want to try to get them to be deeply relaxed so they'll stick around and maybe contribute. You don't want to hit their brains with a hammer and get them to unsubscribe. So the whole purpose of what you're doing is to deeply relax individuals. And I think that we could read Bible verses all day long. Now, if you look in order to relax ourselves, but also to educate ourselves. So it's like killing two birds with one stone. If you look at that Lord's Prayer, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Our Father, hallowed, his name is like has a halo. Hallowed be his name. Thy kingdom come, and thy will be done. The big word there is will. What is the will of God? Is it in alignment with your will? And is your will the will of God? If you can one-to-one that will, you will have power that you've never had before in your life. Now, people run away from what I'm saying. They don't like it because they think it's just hogwash and ridiculous. But the game of life is this word game, which is like doing a jigsaw puzzle and trying to put together the picture. So, uh, that's my opinion.
Peter, what say you? What is this passions of the flesh, and how do we avoid them?
Oh, he left. Probably had to take a number two.
I think he, I think he was convicted of being read to him. And then he opened one crack open
Have you ever read Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma? Or heard of it or seen it?
that. I'm not read Ellington.
I've read parts of it, but never like with great concentration or any intention. But I just briefly opened it yesterday, and Freemasonry really talks about this divine will a lot. They call it the great work. And a lot of Christians are Freemasons, and a lot of Freemasons are Christians. There is an overlap there in terms of the philosophy or theology, and it goes much deeper into personal development. Each degree is a development of the consciousness. Supposedly, 33 degrees, 32 degrees, or whatever. I mean, meaning that the Bible and all these sacred text documents should be used for consciousness expansion, which is large language modeling, or enlightenment. Um, you should actually take this a lot less seriously once you've spent a lot of time engaging with the material, because the saying that the angels can fly because they're so light on their feet, but the Lord of the angels is even lighter. So basically, you become a comedian, or the fool becomes the sage, which is the mystic. So that's why this is all just about words, and I think people on this app are wasting their time not engaging with more words through the actual documents, but having these long form conversations with non native English speakers from other countries that want to talk about this stuff. Because what they're doing is they are trying to parasite off of your LLM host, which is your brain.
What do you think of the biggest mistakes that people that find themselves regularly on this app are making? What's going on with them? You can pick a few problems, but someone like a pathologist or like Andrew, who just really are on this app a lot. What are they doing wrong?
Their choice to do what they're doing, meaning that the real work is reading a book, and it's hard to do because it requires focus and concentration. When you're on here listening, you are floating on what people are saying, especially if you have an audience and a green bean. It's a big dopamine rush for people to be the head of a room with hundreds of people, thousands of comments, and that's like floating. You're floating on these people. So they are successful in what they're doing on this app, but they're not actually doing any work. And how do I know this? Because I've recorded over 50,000 YouTube videos. I've read books on camera for years. And if I wasn't talking to you right now about doing it, I would be doing it.
What do you think motivates someone more? I'm talking about like psychologically. What does he think that he's up to? What does he get out of all this? Is it just about a dopamine rush? What's going on in that empty skull of his?
It's dopamine rush plus confirmation bias or hindsight bias. He has his position reaffirmed by having a big room and floating on people. You want to float. Listen, everybody wants to float, which is basically saying going clear, meaning that you really believe that you are intellectually correct. That's not about superiority. It's just about position reaffirmation. So you project your position, which you think is at the center point, and if the environment holds you up in the way that these rooms hold these people up, it validates them and gives them the dopamine. But it's more than the dopamine, it's the position, which is the relative uh, frame or perspective that they have. So they get put into a state of suspended animation, which is basically, you could call it gnosis or hypnosis, which is a feel good place. And it's where you want to be, but theirs is artificial because they can't sustain it once they leave this environment, this app. And so therefore, if you want to carry the suspended state of animation around with you, you have to basically read a lot. And that's why I think God is in the Word. It's a program, it's a script that we're running through our head. And if you don't engage the sacred text regularly and read it, it's like a potter or somebody doing a sculpture. They're running out of material.
Yeah. You want to tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey? I'm sure you were raised in a particular tradition, and what's your trajectory been like? Where did you start, and where are you going?
Well, you start with nothing, meaning you have no books, and then you get a couple little books, and you start from there. And then, hopefully, over the course of your life, you expand your LLM book collection, and you join the book club, and you say, you know what? This is a book club. And I'm not going to take it literally, because that's crazy. I'm going to take my book club and I'm going to say, look at this Hindu tradition over here and look at this Taoist tradition over here. And how does that information correspond with what the Christians, the Jews, and the Muslims are saying? And then you're like, wow, it's one huge LLM, and it's all about politics, projection, framing, perspective, relative position. It basically becomes political because it becomes this debate, which is what happens on this app, which is happening in the now. The thing is, the big picture. You want to get the message in the big picture, and guys like Andrew never got the understanding about the big picture idea that's being presented in these books, and so they, in my opinion, they're genuine and they're authentic and real, but they don't understand the big picture suggestion that this information is suggesting, which is that you are the Christ in the New Testament. It's about a conscious state of consciousness that anyone can achieve and enjoy it, but it resets, and so it becomes a daily thing or not a daily thing. You might know it's there. It's like riding a bicycle, or you got a bike in your garage. You don't have to ride it every day. And so guys like Andrew, in my opinion, they're not doing a great job teaching or educating their audience about how to change their life for the better, I suppose. And maybe he's not doing it. Because there's a drain in these rooms, and it sucks your life essence out of you. If you're not filling that cup back up with wisdom and light to enlighten yourself, I think you're probably using this app as a short-term dopamine bump to hold back the tide of depression that is waiting behind those closed doors outside of your room of fluff, of float. Now, a lot of this could be projection.
Why do you think that certain substances which enable the states of mind or enhance our experiences, why are they so frowned down upon by these religious communities when they could be so helpful in producing changing effects?
Because not all the changes are because not all the changes are pleasant. People can become very annoying when on chemicals. people can become very destructive and possibly dangerous or maniacal. Their unincorporated shadow self can emerge. So it can be very dangerous to allow participants in a public setting, because again, it's not a controlled environment, and therefore, if you are helping people on this mystical path, you you might say, you know what, f this. This is not worth it. Like, why am I doing this? This is putting me at risk. And so, Clown House is that safe space. You can't get punched in the nose here like you can in the real world.
What do you get out of substances, given that you do use them? I don't know if you do, to whatever degree you do, or if you don't, but do you ever smoke marijuana?
Yeah, I drink coffee, I smoke weed. It's just like a computer system. You put the monitor with the cables into the CPU with the keyboard. I mean, you need all three parts. So, part of the alchemy and the mystic path or tools, cannabis has always been considered the chemical that can essentially deconnect your soul from your body. There's a book by Israel Regardie called Rolling Away the Stone, and it has all the quotations from, what is that? What's the Persian tradition? What is it? Anyways, I got the book right here, but it'll come to me. But anyways, I'm just saying cannabis has always been used throughout human history in Gnostic ceremony or Gnostic activity, meaning that because of the very altered state of consciousness through the chemicals, I think mixing it with the word is the way to do it, because you are flooding your brain in those synaptic gaps with with THC, delta 9. So it's basically just like doping up to do more information processing. And thus the rush is greater. It's like going on a water slide versus just jumping into the pool. But guys like Andrew will never study the occult or hidden knowledge or basically symbols. And that's where the real fun comes into play as a mystic, because as you're living your everyday life, you start seeing how occultish people or occultish groups use allegory or hidden symbols to allude to God in everything. And that's why I don't dislike Black Hebrew Israelites, because I think that they are trying to unite with God. And if you're a Western Jew and you're annoyed at just how annoying they are, well, you have to at least respect or appreciate the fact that they're trying to study and educate themselves. And anybody who reads a book, I will congratulate them for being in the book club.
If you could snap your fingers and change Clubhouse in one way, what would you do? And how would it change?
I would create the ability to create a room where there's really no need for a green bean. No individual would control the debate platform. It would be totally automated. Everybody would get a slot and they're given time, and then the room would self-destruct, and that'd be the end of it. It would remove all the emotional turmoil and brain rot from here, because the CEO or the fascist green bean censor wouldn't be in control. It would truly just be a universal debate of equality.
I'm interested in symbology, and I find it intriguing to look at the symbol of power in a clubhouse, which happens to be green, two circular, and there's something of a star in the middle of it. And I wanted to know if you ever if you ever taken a peek at this sort of, for lack of a better word, I mean, it is a green metaphorical swastika. Have you ever taken a look and seen why it is that this badge was designed the way that it was designed?
Yeah, I have. At one point, I really did analyze, everything, and I was like, I did notice that green bean, and so the saying is that every man and every woman is a star. So if it's so easy to forget that when you are emotionally upset at somebody on this app who is a green bean or not a green bean, immediately their star disappears. But uh, the green bean in this app is truly exists in the real world as well, with managers and senior managers or executive staff. So censorship, or in the real world or in the corporate world, it's out there. And so to me that is like a very upsetting thing in a way, meaning that there's no prioritization of intelligence, even if it transcends and is superior to yours. And because of that green bean, we as humanity have been held back for countless thousands of years because of the real world green bean censorship that takes place. Um, there should be, that's why I say, if we had this universal communication protocol, it would alleviate a lot of the emotional, psychological, and physical material problems on Earth for we humans.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. Um, yeah, I think that the green bean was designed in a particular way as to, they use green because it's like organic, it's not red, it's not authoritarian, so which makes it even a little bit more sinister. It truly is an authoritarian badge, masked in a particular way. I mean, they may as well have made it a peace sign or a lily, but these badges that we wear are obviously vestiges of our barbaric origins. It is the patriarch. It is the silverback gorilla. It is the, but masked, hidden. And I wish that they would just, what they should do is make the green bean, and just make it literally an image of an asshole. Looking perfect. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Just a picture of someone's asshole. So that you can understand that the person wearing that badge is an asshole. It's not something to be glorified about. Everyone has one. And I think that this was the change that I would make on Clubhouse is I would turn this green swastika into a perfectly pink asshole. And I think that we would see a lot of change, John. And I wish you were on board, John. And I wish that you were on more stages, John. And I wish that you would try your best to be heard, John. And I would wish that you would order pizza for us, John. And I think you're a cheapskate, John.
Well, I really have been enjoying garlic on my pizza recently, and I will be happy to order a garlic extra large thin crust cheese pizza baked well done. But tonight I have a date with a 37-year-old German chick who is a master, and she works in business intelligence at a Fortune 500. And all I'm trying to say is that guys on this app are not doing the personal development that they need to be doing, and they're not leading their flock anywhere. They are they don't understand the leadership training that is inherent in the stories and how you should essentially model them or pattern them. And that means babying. It means uniting with the opposite sex. And many men on this app who use this gay accent in the same way that black people use their hedonistic, vulgar, profane accents on this app. Because the first thing, you know, I get up, I turn on Clown House, and I listen to a room, and there's somebody named Murder Man in a room playing content from the trenches. And it's so shocking and so revolting, but yet so funny. And so African Americans, if they want to speak like British aristocrats, guess what? They can. And so what does that tell you? That gay men who do this gay lisp on this voice, you know, on this app, they are voiceover actors. That's not how they sound when they slow it down. So it's so easy to be fooled with sound, and to be hypnotized by it. And you know that's why for years I was always saying all communication is hypnosis, because I wanted to condition people on that thought so they become more aware of how this app is a hypnosis conversation. And so YouTube now gives you a timer warning saying, hey, you've been on this app for 5 years, maybe you should take a break. And they say, you know, do you want to change your timer warning, you know, from 1 hour to 24 hours? So people on this app are like rats in a cage, and once they figure out how to get that dope, they just keep clicking, you know, join or leave quietly, or join or leave quietly. And so as a mystic, I am trying to disrupt people's patterns to make them aware of the fact that they are a patterning, but not in the best way that they could pattern. And the best way to pattern truly is chanting sacred texts. I have many books here that I could pull out and read right now. And I could give you the proof in the pudding instead of just the pudding.
Absolutely, I'm open to it. Um, yeah, I think this whole all communication is hypnosis. Hypnosis is communication, and the inverse relationship um, they have with one another. That sentence can be said either way, and it seems to me to be reified. You are reifying it, and accentuating it. All hypnosis is communicate. All communication is hypnosis, and it's a meme that's spread far and wide, from mind to mind, hopping from one to the other, like a virus. So, I mean, John, I think that you are truly a pioneer.
I'm not though. This only thing all of the stuff I'm telling you is from little glimpses into books, and that book comes from some old book from the '80s, some psychoanalysis book, and the Neurolinguistic Programming Association. Like everything I'm saying is just from books or things that I've heard. None of this is original, but that's the advantage of the book owner. Is if you really do get into books and you come on this app, and people will actually debate you, because most people can't even debate you because they get so emotionally upset over the conversation. Part of the challenge of the communicator, I heard Kennedy say this, Secretary Kennedy, he said, what was it? Get them to understand, I can't remember how he said it. So smart, meaning like, get them to understand what you're saying without upsetting them. But I'll think of it in a second. It's one word that can be used, I guess, in two ways. I don't know what they call that. But anyways, Daniel Nero, you spend so much time on here having the most mundane conversations, like the one I just witnessed a second ago. And see, I film everything because I think in terms of videos. I know on the long scale, life or death, that my 50,000 videos on YouTube is at least my attempt to get into the pictures business, because discovery is about to get bought for $80 billion by Netflix. 80 billion dollars. And Daniel, I don't want to watch anything that they create. So how the fuck could a company be worth $80 billion that's going to get bought by Netflix? It's See, this is the thing about these digital platforms and mind control and time control is that we have an opportunity as Dennis internet users here to create our own union or our own organization to essentially waste our own time as opposed to letting mega corporations waste our time. But people on this app who are wasting their time already are already wasting their time on all these other platforms that you don't see them wasting their time on. So it's fucking sick. It's crazy. And like what I'm doing shortly is I'm reading a book and I'm going to the gym because those two things is what creates my center rod. And I want my center rod to be dense and create gravity. And that means attraction. And if you are running your mouth on this app all the time, well, you're never putting in new information and you're not building your body.
All right, well, I have something to say to that, if you allow me to speak.
Go ahead, Moody.
So I'm not gonna lie, this picture in the motherfucking tweet, bro, that nest looks like a motherfucking butthole. And it looks like your butthole that had a little taste of the brown nest, if you know what I'm saying.
Daniel, do you think any
So,
Oh, go ahead, Moody, sorry.
oh yeah, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Daniel, I record everything, as much as I can. And all of Sam Rosen's rooms, which have been going on for, I don't know, a year and a half now, maybe, I've recorded many of them, and I think personally, you know, people are exploring all realms of thought, but they are not exploring all realms of consciousness because most of the thoughts that are being exchanged here are so stupid and inferior. I like to say it's like the high school cafeteria question: would you swim through the pool if it was full of diarrhea for $1 million? It's those types of conversations. It's imaginative discourse, which is nothing but conversational hypnosis. So this is an incredible opportunity, but also at the same time possibly devastating. Who, just like on YouTube, will sit there uh, for 18 hours a day looking at YouTube. This is how people live and die. And
All right, so listen, like, I'm sorry not to interrupt you. Like, I'm a musical artist, and I've met people, celebrities, and things like that. And I would have to say, like, you know, just because they have lots of millions of dollars and they're rich and they have a lot of status, they're still like weird people, you know? Like, I don't get along with them. So, me as Moody Man, buy your tickets here, StubHub.com, and yeah, I'll see you there in Chicago. It's my first tour.
we'll see. This is a you problem because people who aren't nice or don't know how to, you know, uh, be pleasant in all general settings. And if that means being quiet, well, then that's very pleasant. You know, I've been said many times. People in the workplace have said, "John is so quiet. It's worrisome." And I'm like thinking to myself, uh, I'm listening to you. To find out if you're peaceful. Because to me, this is my theory, Daniel, is that the word earth, which has the word ear in it, and the word here, or be here now, I always want a peaceful environment. Always. But on this app, because of this green bean fascism or communism, we have no peace. And so if philosophy brings you peace, which goes back to my original thesis about musicians and how they are creating a peaceful, relaxing hypnosis for their audience to keep them there, to keep them listening, to keep the ads coming and the money flowing. So, this is my theory. But if you listen to Sasha and to Andrew talking for 80 hours a week about transgender reassignment surgeries and abortions, well, then eventually I'm going to tune out. And I do want to record you, but I don't want to listen to you. So, Daniel, what do you think about my theory, though, about non-native English speakers coming to this app to communicate with native English speakers? That subconsciously and actively, they are actually trying to add to their personal development and LLM. So Moody, I'd like to play you a song, Moody. It's a song I just wrote. I'm gonna play a flute. And
You don't like house music, bro.
it's called Moody. This is the name of the song.
Yeah, it's very moody. I don't like that shit.
I wrote this one for you, brother.
Keep it going, bro. Keep it going. I like that shit. I'm gonna sample that shit.
Never had one lesson.
I'm gonna sample that shit.
Okay, this is my latest technological innovation and contribution to Clown House.
Yeah, keep it going. You're a musical artist.
It's called the fart button.
Nice. It sounds like your fart box.
I believe that basically I've come to the conclusion that there's no difference between the mouth and the asshole because both of them emit gas.
And you can't control how much it is.
And thus, every single word that is used by a human can and is nothing more than a fart. A mouth fart, you might say. Just remember that the next time somebody really presses you.
It sounds like you're snoring.
Well, a snore is technically a fart as well. It's a mouth fart.
Yeah, it's a mouth fart. So I'm glad that you knew exactly what you're talking about. He's talking about himself. That's why he's a singer in his early 40s.
Well, not everybody's gonna like my theories.
And he doesn't shave, and he's fat, by the way. He doesn't go to the gym.
say your asshole is loose? Is that projection?
Alright, hold on. We about to start a whole other thing. Let's play some more drinks. I promise you I'm gonna sound a whole lot better. Yeah, bro. Holy shit. Yo, I might have to sample that shit in the song, bro. I'm gonna send that to Drake, though. Let's see what he says, though.
Well,
No wonder y'all white niggas ain't got no rhythm.
oh, did you just say the hard R? I'm sorry, sir, but we do not allow the hard R on the John Kitover podcast. That is a very strict rule. You have violated it, and therefore you've been put in the goo. I want to let all the YouTube moderators know who might watch this video that it was not me, but an African-American man named Moody. Thank you very little. Well, Daniel Nera, I think we've really fully summarized our concerns and our observations for Clown House as an app, a technological conference call platform, as well as the users of this app. We have thoroughly defined our suspicions, the problems, and I think the solutions for what is perplexing us. Here, here, doctor. Excellent job. Excellent work. As they say at the Chabad, "Uliboy na Yishalayim." I'm not lonely, my friend. I just created an hour-long self-actualization comedy video. Zen down there was like, he's a self-actualization comedian. So that's what my billet says at Zany's. Come see the first self-actualization comedian. But see, that's actually what all comedians are doing. You should watch this documentary on Sam Kinison. It's incredible. Daniel, if you get the chance, go watch that Sam Kinison documentary about his life. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. That's what to me is most upsetting, is that America used to be objective. Now it's all subjective. Because in the 80s, it was like the peak of material and aesthetic, prime. It was the best. And so people overdid it in the 80s with drugs, cocaine, etc., and they destroyed their lives. Like Richard Pryor, who set himself on fire. But that's why I say the Sam Kinison documentary is very funny. Richard Pryor is also self-deprecating, but this is the connection between mysticism and comedy. Comedians are mystics in a way, actors, hypnotizers, because when you go on stage for 5 minutes to an hour, you have to essentially hypnotize the audience and make them laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh and then deeply relax. That's what you're doing. So, I would now like to submit further evidence. This is why Clown House ultimately becomes a courtroom. And if people don't want to waste each other's time, they essentially run it like a court or a mock trial or a Toastmasters. Therefore, no one feels cheated that their time was wasted because it was all conducted in a business-like way.
40-60. Every Mexican, 50-50, every Mexican.
No, let me see this. Hold up. I'll come back.
They set the DNA standards after the raping.
No, it's literally common sense.
He truly believes this. He truly believes
If
this.
a black person mates with a white person, they're gonna have a mix about.
Look how white you are. Look how white this is saying you are.
That's literally what makes me Mexican.
You're white as fuck, bro.
I'm 25%.
You saying you're Caucasian. You're Caucasian. You're not of the old fucking people that inhabit that Mexican land.
Yeah, the one we're
You don't
thinking of.
come from that.
I don't come from what?
You don't come from that. You don't have that warrior gene that been raped out of your people. You're just a white guy. You're a Caucasian dude. Like, what the fuck?
I'm only 25-30% white.
You're Caucasian, bro. You're Caucasian.
They
Okay, if I'm 30% white, and which is from Spain, and my other 30% Mexico, and then the rest of my percentage is in Africa and in Middle East.
Oh, Lord.
they
You're Caucasian, dude. You're Caucasian.
I'm waiting for you to give me an example of how I'm white. If you can say how I'm white, I'll be like, okay, I'm white.
You know, Brazilian, it's all made up.
My people's not Brazilian. Why would I be Brazilian? That doesn't make sense.
And it's saying Canadian and fucking United States like 3%. Like, what the fuck? Like, what?
You're confused? You don't know what you can't read? It's right here.
This is all bullshit. This is all bullshit right here.
So you don't even believe it now.
Your people is not real, bro.
I have DNA results I just posted that proves that my people are real.
You're not a real person. You're Caucasian, bro.
I don't see how.
But why are you getting so angry? Like, it's just the
Yeah,
truth.
it's who you are, they.
No, it's just stupid how people on Clubhouse cannot.
You're trying to say that you're like that old, like native people that ran the lands with the ass.
I don't know what you're talking about. Mexican.
That's not who you are. You're not those people.
You said Mexicans don't exist.
They don't.
They don't.
The definition of a Mexican was a group of natives that were raised by
That's a fact. I don't know who this doctor is. He's exactly those people.
To me is what we learn. Like you go to medical school and you become intelligent because you memorize things, but that's not wisdom. Because wisdom to me is truths that you can't learn unless you get it from within, and that's what wisdom is to me.
Yes. Oh, look, I see CJ has the exact same profile pic as you. Interesting. I've never seen that happen before. Okay. Yeah. Do you know each other?
I do know CJ. She's amazing, and I just clicked on her picture, and her picture is not dirty either.
Okay. I don't know. Oh, it's a Clubhouse thing. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So yes, in terms of intelligence and intellect, I see intellect as something just the way you said, but then there's another thing that's vast intelligence that is consciousness itself, of which we're all a part, and we have access to this vast intelligence through our bodies, which are these vessels, not just to be in the here and now of our physical environments and our physical abilities, but that we are a conduit for information to flow through us from this vast intelligence. So I believe that's part of wisdom as well, is making room for that to come through. And sometimes it's simply a matter of us letting go of the ways we're blocking that flow of information. For instance, when we are tense and we're trying really hard to figure something out up in our intellect, in our headspace, because we think that's all there is my singular ability to figure something out that might be really challenging. And we start to get frustrated and constricted, and we might be shallow breathing. That's when we are, without meaning to, we are in an active practice of keeping out that information that vast intelligence can bring to us if we open, if we become receptive, if we stay curious. So that is an open, receptive stance that allows information to come through. A constricted environment keeps it out. This is another thing that I've come to know as an unspoken truth in our culture for how life really works and how to tap into our vast human capacity is when we learn how to stay open and receptive and let information flow to us. We don't have to be stuck in the headspace figuring it out. It's been a long time for me of learning to turn off my brain power so that I could turn on or attune to this vast intelligence, and a lot of that comes into my mind, by the way. So the mind is still very powerful. Information can flow into the mind, but in many different ways we can receive information, not just through the mind, through the body, for instance, through our heart intelligence, through our emotions. There are many ways that we receive information. One of the ways that I tend to receive it personally is it'll be a whisper of a thought in my mind that I didn't create. It came from somewhere else, and it just landed through the landscape of my physical architecture in my mind. But it wasn't an intellectual exercise. I didn't craft that myself. It just popped in. So if anybody else has had experiences like that of receiving information that is from beyond individual you, share them. Okay, and Music AI, come on up and let's hear what you've got to say. Hi, good morning. You are muted. Yeah, there you are.
Hey.
Okay.
I put it in my.
Hi.
Hey, good morning, Dr. Sharon. Great room. Really liked what you said. I feel like, when you say that, you're like speaking from the source, and it's like a transmission from it. So it's nice to hear that. And I would point you to my PTR, which I just updated. It's called the Trestle Board, and it's just like a little 10 bullet point thing. All the power that ever was or will be is here now. So it's just like a little little meditation to read.
Thank you. I love that. Where do I call you Music AI or something else?
You can call me Music.
Music? Okay. Where are you tuning in from today, Music?
I'm tuning in from Chicago, Illinois.
Chicago. Okay. Okay. Well, it's wonderful to have you here. And I think maybe, I'm not sure, but from your little pink icon, that maybe you're not a member of this house. If that's true, then please go ahead and join. I'm on every Saturday starting at 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, so I think that would be 10:30 for you, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it's 11:30. You're in Central
Yeah.
Time zone, right?
Yeah, 2 hours
Yeah,
ahead
so
of you.
10:30. Yeah, so I'm on for up to 2 hours every Saturday morning. So I'm glad to have you here, and thank you for inviting listening to your recording. Love it. Do you have any other question, actually, that you'd like live coaching about?
How do you view coaching as a business, and how do you view it from a perspective of communication? Like, what in the coaching business? Like, do you spend time coaching people on communication, or is it all communication?
I don't spend much time coaching anymore. Well, on a one-on-one, but I use that term is so diluted, isn't it? It means many different things to many people. So it was a simple way to sort of get people to understand that this is a Q&A in my room, because a lot of rooms don't run that way on Clubhouse. But this is really, this space here, and this is my focus of my work, whether I'm doing public speaking, hosting a talk show, or writing. Those are primary things that I'm doing now, is to reach as many people as possible who want this information about how to tune in to our inner knowing, how to understand the way the world works in a way that really unlocks our creativity, our fulfillment, our joy, our freedom in life, and that often flies in the face of what we are taught, what we are conditioned to believe by the culture. And there's a big conversation going on where a lot of the concepts I talk about here are out in the open, and many people are talking about them, from Oprah Winfrey to Eckhart Tolle to Byron Katie, many people, many voices, slightly different terms, talking about the same kinds of things that I do. And I think these are all beautiful voices to have out there. It's a matter of who calls out to you and aligns with what feels resonant from within. That's what I believe is, don't pay attention to a thing that I say. other than what resonates within you as truth. And that's how to live our lives really in the most powerful way from the inside out. So I don't know, I think that's more guidance than coaching in the vernacular, but the words aren't important. It's more that this is a Q&A. I'm here for you. And for anybody who has a question about any situation in their life where they're seeking clarity for a path forward, my ability is to help get you there, in touch with your inner knowing, so that you can find your own answers. I give plenty of ideas, but it might be my intuition, it might be my observation, but it's really only a matter of that bumping up against your inner knowing. That's the place from which all decisions can be made with assuredness, is when we're not mistakenly tuned into our fear or our conditioned existence, or on autopilot from not thinking about it too much, just going by habit. And now some of our habits in life are fabulous and they serve us well. So now I'm talking about the habituated existence that doesn't serve us. And we don't know unless we tune in fully to the present moment and to ourselves and to our inner knowing. And so that's what this lead coaching in my context means. Is that helpful to you, music?
Yeah, it is. I recently was talking to a woman who has a coaching business, and I was asking her about her marketing, and that term coaching to me. Um, I mean, I'm a student of hypnosis. I like hypnosis products, hypnosis communication, and so to me, it's. I was trying to get her to understand that her coaching business is in a way a hypnosis business. My friend's father, Dr. Gruber, we got Jordan Gruber in the house, not the same Gruber, but it's called Pronunciation Workshop. And he has a very successful YouTube business, and he just says, say this word, coaching. Coaching has, I mean, then technical components of a word and stress on words on. So it's like, to me, he's putting people in a deep state of relaxation. So, same thing with a musician. Their audience, you're trying to hypnotize your audience to get them to listen to your music. So, my suggestion to musicians is create music that is deeply relaxing, and they'll stick around. You can feed them an advertisement. So, I was trying to get your perspective or opinion on coaching, because to me, it's not a controversial word. But I think about a baseball team and the coach. The coach isn't always making great suggestions or pleasant suggestions. Sometimes they tell the batter to step into the pitch to get the walk. I mean, what kind of a coach is that? So I was just a joke. But
Okay. Well, I like all of the things you're saying are interesting, because hypnosis is getting into a highly focused state. That's the basis of hypnosis. When anybody gets into a highly focused state and they have a suggestible personality, then they can be programmed in a way, or information can be accessed, whatever the point of the hypnosis is. And so I would say the parallel here is that a focused state is really the same as being fully present to this moment. So the doorway into our inner knowing is full presence in this moment to ourselves, to what is. And then another step is moving in acceptance with what is. So if I'm dropping resistance, then I can really be open and receptive. But I would say the doorway in is full presence. And so it's similar to me in that the doorway in for hypnosis, it isn't magic like people think. It is pure presence. It's being focused. And a talented hypnotherapist helps them bring somebody into that focus state. We all have the ability, though, to be for ourselves someone who lets the to-do list fall away, drops out of our intellect, trying to figure things out, and getting ourselves into a focused state. And there's a protocol for hypnosis, and people use different protocols for different types of hypnosis. And here, I find the easiest way, you may all have your own ways that you drop into pure presence. I find the easiest way that I know, and so I talk about it a lot here, is to just drop into the belly and focus on the breath for a few full, deep breaths. In fact, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist leader who brought Buddhism to the West, he used to talk about the mindfulness bell, and he would ring a bell. I got to go on a retreat with him, and he would ring a bell every so often. You might be in the middle of eating or whatever you're doing or walking, and everybody had to freeze frame. This was what he taught us. Freeze frame. Whatever you're doing.
Free frame!
Your fork stays in your hand. It doesn't come up to your mouth. You stop mid-stride, and you focus in your breath for 3 full deep breaths. And that was the mindfulness spell, to bring you into the present moment. So I find it a very quick and effective way of bringing us into that focused state. So that might be a tangent from when you were talking about music in terms of having but it may be that people are drawn to these different methods that people are using in their different businesses to bring people into a focused state. It's a relief, I think, to many people who in our somewhat ADD infused multitasking culture, going back and forth looking at the phone all day long and being in the middle of a conversation or a work day, we now have a state of being in our culture that drives us by virtue of how tech tools have come up and just where we are right now in humanity, that we have a lot of divided attention. So it can feel incredibly soothing to our systems to give a reboot and come back into pure presence. Let everything else fall away, that multitasking, because I have so much I have to do and I'm tracking everything at once, and then do the opposite of that, just like one does in hypnosis. The opposite of that, get super focused. Drop into the breath. Take in the moment. And when any of us feels that full presence wash over us, it's incredible experience. Hi, Jordan. You have something to add or ask?
I just wanted to add that that's why it seems to me that taking time to put on your favorite music, an album, and 3 or 4 times a week, really have your main focus on the music that you love instead of doing a lot of other things at the same time.
Might take a little bit more longer.
Really valuable
in a great way, but.
Oh, that's a great reminder, because I often will put on music while I'm doing something else, so I love that reminder. Just take in the vibe of that music. And do you listen to music to get you into a certain mood or to reflect what you're feeling or something else?
Well, I definitely use it to get me into a certain mood. I mean, I have a whole kind of more music.
You're cutting out a little bit. Jordan, I lost your audio. You're cutting out. I wonder if you have poor cell reception in this moment.
He's out taking the cats on a walk, so.
Say that again?
He's taking his cats on a walk.
Okay. Okay. Well, maybe that's...
Am I using my signal?
I can hear you now. I sound like a phone commercial.
I fixed the problem. I walked out of my house to go on my morning walk and forgot to turn off
Okay.
So, but there was something else I wanted to say, which is you talked about hypnosis, and yes, we are friends here.
Gradually, everything. But because when you say the heart is physical,
And I'm pretty sure it is. And so I want to talk a little bit about unconflicted behavior. Do you know that term?
I don't. Enlighten us. I'd love to.
That's my job, man. Unconflicted behavior. Those terms are brought to me by Joseph Chilton Pierce, who wrote Magical Child. Are you aware of who wrote these books?
I've heard of him, but no, I haven't read him, so I don't know about him.
He had a lot of very super early progressive ideas about how to raise children, just like he wrote Magical Child, and he also had basically he thought the brain was more of a transceiver and that knowledge and wisdom and was outside of us and all these different things, but he was a psychologist. I saw him speak in his first books in my view, and then he needed a place to sleep, so he did stay on the couch one night, which was unusual for me. But he was getting his degree at UC San Diego, and I think it was a medical degree. I don't remember where it was. And they were having, he and a bunch of other students, grad students, were having dinner on this cliff over the ocean. And pretty much you had to drive up the cliff. There was, in theory, a way to climb off every single lift and get there. And he wasn't known for being athletic. And someone made a joke about that. There's no way he could ever do that. And he got into this intense fugue state of focus where the way he had been disrespected by the others and with the right people, flying is nearly impossible to climb without certainly somebody with his level of skill and athleticism should have been able to have done it. And yet he did it. And he was able to do it, and it's a pretty fun read in this part of the book because he had to, because there's absolutely no obstacles in his way in mind and body and spirit. He was just 100% fully committed to doing it. So, the question is how often do we let ourselves get in that state of unconflicted behavior? And I bring it up because I'm very involved with some progressive thinking, trying to understand science and learning more about sociology of science. As I see scientific research being supported and mistaken, and people kind of going with their existing presumptions, even though we've got hard evidence that things are really the other way. So I see a lot of those different kind of things going on. And there was the study recently where the same company did 2 studies in a row. In the first study, they had 19 people take LSD at home after showing them how to do it in the clinic. And people could titrate, they could raise their amount like they were getting. And this was for major depressive disorder. And the results were great. Something called the NDRS scale, their symptoms went down by 60%. So it's just huge, and nobody can understand how it did so well. Excuse me. 10 days after the paper came out, another memo came from the head CEO of the company that said they did phase 2, which is now a double-blind trial. First one was open label, everybody knew. Second one was and they used Adderall with caffeine as the blind, which is weird. But the people who took LSD and followed it was insane, except they didn't know if they were getting LSD or not. Their symptoms only went down 29%, not anything like the 60% of the first people. You can interpret this as LSD doesn't work, really, because it didn't do any better than placebo, or you can interpret this as once these people didn't know for real that they were getting real medicine, they weren't able to do as well. They no longer had a kind of unconflicted behavior that went with their participation. It was kind of a breach of trust of the whole field. As soon as you put in a double blind, because we already know that LSD works pretty well for depression. But as soon as you try to squeeze it into the, you might people's trust is broken, their results went way down. The last double, excuse me, the last example of unconflicted behaviors I've been in Reagan's book, which is called The Silence of Magic. And he describes this situation in which he is at a spoon bending party because it's something he'd seen, but he'd never been able to do it. He really tried, and this is sort of the Yuri Geller thing, and all of a sudden they were doing it, and people started getting excited and pointing election, and years ago, pointing at somebody past him who was getting these results, and he got so excited. Then he looked down and he realized he was the one who had basically bent his skin in half with a light touch. He let go. He experienced the unconflicted behavior and the excitement and the rising energy of this happening in the room. So that was a long exegesis. I don't know if it really all ties back together, but
This only thing I'm telling you from little glimpses in the books, and that book comes from some old book from the 80s, some psychoanalysis book, and the Neurolinguistic Programming Association. Like, everything I'm saying is just from books and things I've heard. None of this is original. And that's the advantage of the book, though. Is if you really do get into the books, and you come on this app, and people will actually debate you, because most people can't even debate you because they get so emotionally upset over the conversation. Part of the challenge as a communicator, I heard Kennedy say this, Secretary Kennedy said,
remembering that, the mind interacts with the physical world and vice versa.
Get them to
not just making that up.
understand,
Really get 100% of the possible
I
benefits.
can't remember how it's said, but it was so smart. Anyway, get them to understand what you're saying without upsetting them.
This is all very
But I'll
interesting
think about it in a
stuff.
second. It's
And in
one word
fact,
that
right
can be
now,
used, I
I'm
guess,
reading
in two ways. I don't know
the
what you call that.
latest Dan Brown book, which is called The Secret of Secrets, and he
But
talks
anyways,
about
Daniel, you spend so much time on here
Dean Radin is going to be
having
in
the most mundane
conversation
conversations, like the one I just witnessed a second ago.
from
See,
the
I
Institute
film
of
everything
Noetic Sciences
because
that
I
have
think
free
in
online
terms of
webinars.
videos.
I'm going to be
I
attending
know
them.
on the long scale, life or death, that my 50,000 videos on YouTube is at least my attempt to get into the pictures business, because Discovery is about to get bought for $80 billion by Netflix. $80 billion. And Daniel, I don't want to watch anything that they create. So how the fuck can a company worth $80 billion get bought by Netflix? This is the thing about these digital platforms and mind control and time control, is that we have an opportunity as internet users here
Well, that's
to
exciting,
create our
isn't it?
own
Because
union
for a long time,
or our
people have
own
said, I
organization
only use a small
to essentially
percentage
waste our own
of
time
power.
as opposed to
And
letting
so
mega
then the big question is,
corporations
well,
waste our time.
how can we use
But
the
people on
rest
this
of
app
it?
who are wasting their
And
time already
I do
are
think
already
this
wasting their time on
is-
all these other platforms that you don't see them
leads us
wasting
in
their time
that
on. So
direction of what's being
that
studied
is
at
fucking
the
sick,
Institute of Noetic
crazy,
Sciences
and like
and
what
some
I'm
other
doing shortly
institutions
is
like
I'm
the
reading a book
Heart
and I'm
Math
going to the gym.
Institute, for instance. There's a lot of interesting
Those
research
two
going on right now. It's
things
a very
is
interesting
what
time
creates my
in the
center
Maps,
rod.
Institute
And I
as
want my
well.
center rod
So
to be
there's a
dense
lot of
and create
the culture is
gravity.
shifting to
And that
the
means
different
attraction.
perspective
And
that you
if
speak
you
about.
are running your mouth on this app all the time, well, you're never putting in new information, and you're not
Kind of an entertaining look into the more spectrum, which is basically, as the book talks about, noeticists of
I
which
really have been enjoying garlic on my pizza recently,
believe that
and
consciousness is a thing
Chuck
that we're
garlic
all
on my
part of.
pizza.
It doesn't reside inside of our minds. That's what materialists believe. Consciousness is purely a construct of the mind, whereas noeticists believe that there's a vast intelligence. That's the really short version. And this discussion goes on in the book and talks about people like Dean Radin and some of what's possible, some of the research that's going on. So it's an entertaining way to get a look at some of this. Another way is to simply join the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and they have a ton of free offerings, incredible webinars that I attend regularly that talk about this stuff if it turns you on, And I love delving into that because it takes us out of our everyday lull in which we believe very differently than that. We get caught up in the singularity perspective, like it's just little me trudging through my life and trying to make do, and we pop into a completely different world. In fact, in this book, they points out, the researcher that is a noeticist points out that when we're on LSD or these other substances that are meant to bring about what's called a God experience, a merged experience where we're one with everything, that is the truer reality. The world we live in that we think is reality is actually where we're blocking so much of that out that we don't have that full experience in our everyday lives.
No, we don't want to believe that what is called the supernatural in a way that makes fun of things is real. In fact, the supernatural is the basis of our being. In fact, as Jeff Kripal goes through in his new book, 2022, The Superhumanities, all of these stories that you read in the religious and spiritual traditions, many of them are based in actual abilities that people had around healing and telepathy and weather magic. I don't know about levitation. I'm going to think yes on super strength, but that's the actual thing. So I wrote a review of a book called Practical Magic by Mitch Horowitz for the Quest, which is the Theosophical Society's journal. I have a line in there that goes something like, either you know, there are two kinds of people. One type believes that time doesn't directly interact with matter, and that time is strictly always linear, and that it's impossible for consciousness to reside other than in an incarnated animal being in real time. And the other kind of people knows that none of those are true. And that's why Dean Radin writes so brilliantly when he'll just say psi, PSI, psychic ability and phenomena, and extrasensory perception, what we call psi is word category, and magic are the same. And Dean will just go out and say, it's the same thing. Let me translate it for you. And so either you know that the supernormal reality is what exists at a deeper level, and in some sense this reality is rising out from it, or is, as opposed to the view in the West, generally where this is all one big material device, a construction, a clock, or an engine. And it all starts at that physical level. If you're Hindu, you believe that the world, huge story that's on telling, that there are principalities and powers involved, and it's much more like a story than it is like a clock or a mechanism. But there's no question that reductionistic materialism has been super successful since around 1600. The problem is it's been too successful to the point where we've been de-enchanted, because as soon as you start talking about this kind of thing, depending on your business situation or your social situation, at a certain point, unless you're with people who are really open-minded, a large majority of the population is going to think you're kind of nuts and that you don't know what you're talking about and that you're a simpleton or that you're a full-on idiot. And I get all of that sometimes.
Well, I'm going to say you're in a space right now where I think there tends to be a lot of common ground, a lot of openness to these concepts, which is why we get to discuss them here with full openness and held in love. We don't have to be in discord with anybody, because I think people are drawn here who are curious and want to make sense of the world in this way that is this non-physical reality that we're talking about, and even how we frame it, right? So you're talking about a lot of concepts here. Let's just look at one for a moment that I love, which Gay Hendricks talks about in his book, The Genius Zone. If you know that, it's a very accessible book for how to really live from this place where you're living from your best self. And one of the things he talks about I love is this difference between the Newtonian concept of time and the Einstein concept of time. So you touched on that, Jordan. So the Newtonian concept is that time is linear, there's only so much, there's 24 hours in a day, and that's a construct that we've created, humanity, that's not true, and it's been disproven. And so now Einstein talks about this, and in his book, Gay Hendricks talks about how we can put that into practice in our lives. So this is now going from the theoretical to the practical. if you've ever been rushing around and you're going to be late to an appointment and you're worried about disappointing somebody, you're not going to show up on time, or you feel like you simply don't have enough hours in the day to get everything done, that feeling, it feels anxiety provoking, right? And you'll really believe it because you're looking at the clock and counting down. So that's now being in the Newtonian mindset around time. The way to shift that is to relax into, I have plenty of time. I own time. Time doesn't own me. I own time. I create time. And he gives examples in the book of somebody, figuring he was for sure going to be late, and then dropping that anxiety and getting into a mindset of, no, actually, I create time. Didn't even look at his watch and showed up a few minutes early for a meeting, was in fact the first one there. So I invite you to try this on in your life. If you ever find that you're rushing around feeling an absence of time or a lack of enough time, to shift your mindset to one of, I have plenty of time. In fact, I own time. Let me just slow it down right now and get into a super relaxed state around time. Everything will unfold perfectly. And then see what shifts in your life. It can be, I've tried this out for myself because I forget as well when I get caught up. And incredible how quickly that shift can take hold. And literally, I get confirmation that I indeed do own time. It doesn't own me. That's the only construct, time utility concept construct that has been disproved. So that's one little example of because I think that's a really important thing that happens here in this room is doing that. Yeah, Jordan, you wanted to add something?
Well, only I have had issues with time my whole life. I want people to be on time, and I hate it when I'm not on time. And sometimes people make me late for other things, which drives me crazy. And I was thinking what you were saying about just trying to let go of it and be okay. And I'm wondering, sometimes those kind of things do happen, and all of a sudden everything shifts and all this works out. But I was thinking that underneath that, there's an even higher level of not just that you own time, but you have to own the ability to affirm yourself, regardless of what's going on in the exterior physical world, regardless if you made a mistake or you're sick or people have disappointed you. I mean, it's ultimately up to you at the deeper level to own the place from which the anxiety is coming from. And, you're somehow thinking you're wrong or not enough, but you could have failed on some level. So instead of doing that, if you could really own the place of you that is ultimately responsible for, acknowledging and approving of yourself, then that's another way of getting past that.
Yes, sometimes we have these voices, these loops going that we don't even realize that are putting ourselves down or making meaning from an old program that puts us down in some way. So absolutely, that's a part of it, is taking back our power by seeing through the lens of our wisest self, which is always loving. So any one of those critical voices is a conditioned voice. It is not the real one. It feels real, that inner critic. And yet, if we shift focus into our inner knowing, we know that's false in an instant. We know that's an old program. It may be from childhood or whatever it may be. So coming back into the present moment is another way we can, if we're fully present, we can observe ourselves. And I think that's another thing. It's such a powerful tool, is when we're present to ourselves, we can have this little inner dialogue that says, oh, I see, I'm down on myself in this moment. And that's an old conditioning. Oh, and that doesn't serve me. And for sure, that's not my wisdom coming through. That's another part of me. So let me attune to that part of myself. How do I want to do that? Okay, I want to take a few full deep breaths. And then I want to ask myself, how does love want to move through me in this moment? Or whatever the question is, bring me back to looking through this place where I access a deeper sense of reality of my authentic self. So this is about now an access point where I reach conditioning in this lifetime. And this is why I love movies like The Matrix and Everything Everywhere All at Once, because they are about this concept that when we take off the construct and we get to the core essence of who we are, it's so much more. It's very different. It's a deeper reality that is pure presence, that is love, and it's a very different way to move through the world. So as many times as we can set ourselves into a new habit to attune to that part of ourselves, we can bring ourselves into the way where we are, what's the term again, Jordan? Unconflicted
behavior.
We can be in unconflicted behavior because we're not letting those other unconscious voices, because we're not fully present to ourselves, get in the way. So being into full presence, then getting into the observer mind or the witness. What the heck's going on right now? And do I need to reset, regroup, refocus? What part is leading? Yeah, go ahead.
It's a really good conversation. You're a really good coach. Whenever you kind of get into the coach mode, I can feel it kind of drifting around to all of us here who are listening. It's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
Joy
I've been writing up a piece.
is very hard to come by
to
whenever you're going through something like this. But Maisie smiled through the whole thing. She has shown us that even though you're going through something terrible, you can still enjoy your life. You can still do fun things. You can still.
I've learned what people would want to know, that kind of thing. Even though it's like I said, when you give me homework, are you? You're not having any kind of relationship other than conversation. So I did, and then it came back and said, great, now put out 2/3 of the words. I did that, and I just go back and it's like, now make it just 3 sentences. So I've been thinking about, what enlightenment really is. And I think it's asked for one thing. It definitely involves your awareness becoming conscious of itself and how it's working. And you can come into
out and listen if that's what you're doing today. Or if you want to come on up and be part of the conversation, I'd love to have you join us. And so I always know you have something to say if you unmute or if you raise your hand and come on up. Except in your case, I'm so sorry.
This holiday, give the gift of music. Save 25% on a loved one's first
Yeah,
4
try again.
lessons.
Okay.
Grab a gift card in store to take advantage of these savings. Or get signed up at guitarcenter.com/lessons today.
If you do,
Do not get a consolidation loan
otherwise,
using
I'll
this.
just, I
Or
just
look
like
at 0 to 3. You might get a consolidation loan to combine your credit card debt or your
voices
personal
here
loan
who are
debts into
bringing
one.
their
And there are 3
knowledge into
things
this
you
room
should
to
know.
share. I really appreciate what everyone who has spoken
Number one,
has
many
had to
people
say
don't
about
qualify for
music, Jordan
consolidation
and
loans,
Romy.
especially now with tighter lending
And
standards.
there's
2,
room
even if you do
for
qualify, you
everybody.
still have to pay
If
back
there's
everything
anybody
else.
else who has
3,
something they
there's a
want to
little
share,
known way to
we're
consolidate
really
your
talking
debt.
about
You may
this
qualify
concept
for
of
where you don't have to pay
the
back
true
all you owe.
reality
You lower your monthly
that
debt payments.
is different than how most of us
I
live
recently
most
discussed
of
how
the
this
time
works with a financial
in a
expert.
conditioned
To learn more,
existence
just
of
keep watching this
Bloomington.
video. And I saw you on Oprah where you were talking about money issues. You remember?
It's just for me,
Yes, that was a great
individual me in
episode.
the
I think
world,
it
we
really
get caught
helped
up
a lot of
in
people. I'm sure it
the
did.
physicality of ourselves
Well,
as
I'm actually
human
working on a
beings,
special
human
project
beings,
that reveals
when
the
this
2
larger
secrets to reduce
construct
their credit card debts by half
than the way
and
we
lower
look
their monthly
is one
payments.
that we are part of
A
a
lot
vast
of people have
intelligence,
done
the
that.
larger pure
What's
one,
the
this
2
one
secret?
big
It's called
consciousness that we're, so we are all part of the same thing. And then our construct in our conditioned existence starts to fall apart because time isn't linear after all, even though we're sure it is every day when we look at our phones a million times a day. And things aren't just real that are tangible and physical, but in fact, it is the non-physical reality that creates our tangible physical world. So the world can seem upside down when we take off the filters that we have been conditioned to believe our whole lives. And I think there's a growing number of people who want to take off those filters and understand, how does life, the world really, and the universe for that matter, really operate? And these are the deep questions being researched. There's a ton of research now about things that are still taught. This is still poo-pooed, a lot of these beliefs, but there's really strong scientific research now by Dean Radin, who Jordan mentioned, and others who are doing serious scientific inquiry to look at consciousness. And so if you want more information about that, check out the website for the Institute of Noetic Sciences and even sign up for the talk. It's free, you don't have to be a member to go to this free talk, I believe. It's going to be next Friday, where Dean Radin, the chief scientist, interviews Dan Brown, who wrote this book that's out now, Secret of Secrets, where he talks about all of this vast consciousness, and he mentions Dean Radin, even the book that Dean just published, he is mentioned in this other book. So this is worlds colliding in the best possible way, where you can have entertainment discussing these more complex concepts that are our deeper sense of reality. And even what was touched upon earlier by Jordan, mentioning the placebo effect. That's us getting into, in a way, a non-conflicted behavior, right? When we believe something is real, we can be given a sugar pill that can be just as effective as the medicine with the supposed active ingredient. The biggest active ingredient we have is in us. It's our consciousness. When we get out of the way and make room for all that's possible and our limitless nature, it's really true, our limitless nature, then incredible things happen. Okay, Joe, I'm trying to call you as well.
Dr. Sharon, can I ask you a question?
Please go ahead.
So, Time Warner, Netflix is doing this $80 billion Discovery deal, and it's a communications corporation. People are concerned about it. My question is, a lot of people have content addiction, but it's not giving them contentment, meaning that they're doom scrolling, they're watching Netflix 8 hours a day. So that's time control and that's mind control. And I know you said you worked with Thich Nhat Hanh. I have some Thich Nhat Hanh CDs, and I was listening to one in my car the other day, and he called it the Four Pebble Meditation. You know, I am a mountain. I am space. I am free. Like these positive affirmation, these neurolinguistic little meditation programs to give us contentment. You know, Clown House is a very small audience. I'm just saying, like, how do we, you know, liberate mankind through Discovery and Netflix?
Yeah, such a relevant question, isn't it, in our culture? In fact, this is a few years back, I went to a meetup. It was a conversation that largely was about this very thing, and it was a fascinating room because you had up on the stage unicorns and spiritual leaders both. And this was a Wisdom 2.0 event. If anybody's familiar with Wisdom 2.0, it's an organization that bills itself as where business meets mindfulness. So they bring together those two concepts. And there were these tech billionaires saying we have a real problem, similar to what you're just saying, music. And somebody sitting next to me that was a professor from my alma mater, Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, where we studied consciousness and psychology. And we looked at each other and we were just like, why don't you just turn off your fucking phone? Like, why is this so difficult? And so we've had to build in a lot of features into our devices, do not disturb and all of this, because we seem to be very Pavlovian in that, there's a sound that goes off and we stop what we're doing and we look at the phone, right? Or Netflix puts us on autoplay, and by default, I think. Now they've changed that where you can turn that off, right? So that you don't constantly go from one thing to the next thing. So we have many things out there in our culture that can prey upon our addictive nature in a way. Fast food's another one. Things that are kind of sleazy that are built in to prey upon our human frailties, let's put it that way. And so I think the antidote to that is the more we can get present in the moment, we can not be on autopilot and just binge watch the next episode. We can say, oh, wait a minute, let me put pause on here, take it off autoplay, and let me get up and stretch and think about how I really want to be spending my time right now. So it's ultimately up to each one of us, and we want society to be responsible and to not set us up for failure, right? But really, we're the ultimate people, the ultimate ones who make that decision for ourselves, no matter what gets thrown in our path. We can say, I'm taking a tech break, whatever it might be, but it deserves our attention and one of us, knowing we each have our own ways of operating. We each have our own strengths and our own weaknesses or challenges. And so knowing that, only we fully understand them for ourselves, then we can sit for a moment and devise some ways that we are going to get ourselves out of autopilot given the world we live today. And I know some people will take a complete break for a day or a week or something. And other people will put their phone on silent, whatever it might be. That it's worthy of some thought and some strategizing, don't you think? To make our own plan for how we're gonna not make that be the justification for us being further habituated in a cycle of autopilot where we're not fully present. We're just letting the world kind of invade and take over us. That's only happening because we're letting it. So how do we not let that happen, right? Anytime I'm listening to a friend who's frantic and agitated, describing the latest news cycle, I say, oh, you've been listening to the news or watching the news again, haven't you? And they're like, yes. I say, well, cut that out. You know, so I'm not tuning into the news cycle because it's bad news is considered newsworthy. I mean, it just is. So you don't hear a lot of good news. And there's plenty of good news happening on the planet at any given time, but it's not considered worthy of the sensationalism that will drive up the viewers, etc. So those are my thoughts. Music.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny is like if you liberate mankind through Netflix by giving them enlightenment wisdom, you destroy Netflix because people will turn the tube off. So, they have a catch-22s. They don't want to give you the secret message to essentially disconnect you from their platform. But that's what would theoretically happen, even though it probably wouldn't, because people are addicted to content. And I have this book on psychoanalysis and therapy and yoga and TM, transcendental meditation, and it says that in the 80s, the Neurolinguistic Programming Association declared that all communication is hypnosis. So this Pavlovian bell ringing and saliva drilling and our cell phone activation, it's all hypnosis, it's all communication. So that mindful awareness of the power of communication to control us, that breaks the power of it once you're aware of that, that problem, which is not a problem. I think it's a content problem, not, it's not a problem. It's just the content that people are consuming is causing them psychological problems, emotional problems, propagandistic problems. And so, I love what you're doing. I love hypnosis, and I believe in the power of it because it's content, and people need contentment. Thich Nhat Hanh was the master of peace. That type of psychology, that type of understanding, if we don't get people like that in government, we're doomed, because there's nothing to fear but fear itself. The debt and all these cataclysmic issues that are driving people crazy through the news cycle can be dealt with, but they have to be dealt with that awareness and presence.
Yeah, I think, first of all any of us can do is turn out and vote. And that's our power in terms of our elected leadership. But the other thing is to find our peace. It is really an internal practice to tune inward. We all get to achieve that. No matter what's going on externally in our environment, we all get to tune in and choose peace and access that for ourselves. So my choice to not be very connected at all with the news cycle is my strategy to help me easily delve into that peace from within. And I just want to acknowledge, okay, there's a couple people who had their hands up, and it seems to not be working today at all for some people to get called up here. I don't know why that is. So I'm sorry about that, but you're all invited to try. Raise your hand at any time, and I will invite you up, and I will hope that it can work. So it's worked some of the time, but not all the time today. Sometimes that's when there is a new version of this app. It's worth it to go, okay, Garish, I'm inviting you to speak. Oh, there you're up. Okay.
Prime student loan debt, wrecking your life.
Changed your profile.
You really need to talk to Why Refi. Why Refi? Refinance.
Me sitting in meditation,
A meditative question?
No, I'm the picture I'm explaining about the picture. It is my meditative posture. Like the place I used to meditate.
Yes.
It's the picture of that. I like having a lot. Like a fan, a big fan of anime.
Okay.
Japanese anime.
Yes.
Try to animate myself.
Oh, okay. I love it. Okay. So this is you in anime.
Yeah, I'm a character. I'm building up, as I said, like many things before, like I'm working on a creative project. And I'm trying to be original, that not to copy anything, like start fresh, like I'm, trying myself, best version of my.
Missed all the time. Namaste.
Very, I thought constant is something divine, if you put it in an equation like something like constant, like if you come through physics, there is something called theory of evolution, the latest, the one that was a great mathematician was C.V. Raman, you might have heard of it.
Say his name again?
C.V. Raman.
C.V. Raman?
C.V. Raman.
C.V. Raman. Okay, I'm not familiar. He was a great
He's the
mathematician.
he's the one who gave equation to the black hole,
Okay.
he started off with divine intuition. He was a little, still temple boy, he used to visit some Devi, some divine feminine temple, and then he used to come home and write everything in mathematics and equations. Till now nobody has reached up to him. He's the best in the world, and the ancient was like Aryabhatta, the inventor of zero. The Roman number, everything but Indian Aryabhatta is called the father of mathematicians. Somehow in culture, he gave the zero. And
Well, this is a good name to know, isn't it? Okay.
Astronomy. There was a whole lot of, they call Nalanda University. It was the biggest world center for education. Everybody in the ancient time, not it's like 1,000 years, before the colonization, everything happened there. India had this Bihar state, and it was called the master of the keepers of the everything, secret to the astrology, name it, everything, it's like ChatGPT version. It was everything, every knowledge, there was teacher, there was Gurukul, there used to be an ashram called Gurukul, right after the prime age, after the child gets some age, I don't remember, but they put into the homeschooling, they put into the group. And we had visitors all over the world, the ancient, as we can go, even Buddha, traveled, and he was there is many Buddhas, infinite Buddhas, and infinite, the divine essence, that is self-illuminating. Self-illuminating, it's the right side of it, the ancient goddesses who live among the lands of India, Bharat. They especially the root to goes to Shiva, Shiva is the, they call Adi Yogi, if you know Sadhguru, Shiva. But that's when I released my name is also called Girish and Shiva, one who sits on the mountain and meditate. So the picture, it is also that way.
So you've taken your name to heart.
My name was my father and mother name. My father actually named me, but it is according to the astrological thing. We have a whole lot of even after the tribal, from tribal people, the village, every village, every town, every city, every society had its own what you call Grama Devata, means the protector of the land. Tiny pieces, and it has evolved so much that the main deity we worship and the origin of everything is by Shiva Shakti. and as long as I'm still in the family life.
No weapon
But
found
yeah,
against you.
like there is so many names, and we all named after gods, and sometimes people name after some, like they wanted some baby loan, then they don't get, and the name of the Shiva. And like we call Manjunath, the name Shiva name is like Sahasranama, like if you go through the internet and search for this Sahasranama, there is like Shiva Sahasranama, like 1,000 names of the Shiva, 1,000 names of the Vishnu, Lalita Sahasram. It is very vast, and I think ChatGPT can do a good work. If we are like we are the England, like in the English people stole all the tricks and manipulated, and like it gone to the US, and then like it is coming back to the market in the highest possible youth society. So it is all like coming back, like we might have given up all that secret
Wait, I want
knowledge.
to stop you. I want to stop you for a second, Girish. I want to come back. I want to go back to something you said at the beginning, if I might, and then we can return here. Is that okay? You started out, you started out on a different track. You were talking about how you purposely turn off the media because you can see that it's not good for you, right? And this is what music is talking about also, is the quality of it that sort of takes us down this rabbit hole where we don't want to go, and
Yes.
the addictive nature of it, right? So
Yes.
I just wanted to touch on that for a moment and look through the lens of addiction, because it's rampant globally. I think every culture, right? And it's not just about media and news, it's about anything you can imagine. Anything around drugs and alcohol and sex and gambling, any pornography, anything that people do to their detriment, where it's not serving them, it's causing harm to themselves and others, and they can't seem to pull themselves out of it. That's what we would call an addiction. And it's the huge sort of shadow side of our culture, very, very common. And so what is the source of it, and how do we get ourselves out of that? Because it's much more than turning off autoplay on Netflix, right, to get out of that. So the core of addiction is numbing the pain of feeling the disconnect. And so let me say that again. The core of addiction is to numb the pain of feeling the disconnect. And so the remedy for that is to tune in deeply to ourselves and to the vast consciousness, vast intelligence, and attune ourselves to our Buddha nature, which is what you came around to in the end, is the Buddha nature. And we all have a Buddha nature. There's a saying, everyone's the Buddha, they just don't know it. It's to awaken to our Buddha, and that's, Jordan was alluding to that earlier, that we all can be enlightened in any moment, and that is turning our attention to our inner light, our inner knowing. And when we are one with that part of ourselves, now we bring ourselves into a kind of alignment where we're no longer disconnected. We bring ourselves into a place of connection. And now connection can be beyond that to other people. But the primary connection is really knowing that we are one with everything in the universe. I think that's the primal wound that happens in our culture, especially for those who have believed the conditioning that we've all gotten, that we are all separate beings just trying to fumble around. And there can be, people say there's a loneliness epidemic, same thing.